Hello everyone. In this module 4 of Principles and Practices of Management, we would be studying evolution of management, development of management thoughts. It is the second part where we would be studying neoclassical theories. Under it, we would be studying human relation theory and behavioral science theory. So, the evolution of management theory. To recap again, I would say the evolution of management theory is divided into three parts, that is the classical theory of management, the neoclassical theory of management and the modern management theories. Under classical theory of management, it is divided into scientific management, bureaucratic management and administrative management. Neoclassical theory says human relations, behavioral science approach. Modern management theory has quantitative approach, system approach, contingency approach and operational approach. After classical theory, the managers found that Taylor and Fayol's study did not quite achieve complete production efficiency and workplace harmony. The real inspiration came from Hawthorne's experiments done by Professor George Alton Mayo and his colleagues at the Western Electric Company plant from 1927 to 1932. The plant employed 29,000 workers to manufacture telephone parts and equipments. The experiments is described into four parts, that is illumination experiment, relay assembly test room, interviewing program and bank wiring test room. Well, in illumination experiments, in the first phase, the productivity is positive and correlated with illumination was tested. The experiment was done on group of workers, productivity was measured at various levels of illumination, but the results were erratic, means not even. Later, they set two groups of workers in different buildings. One control group worked under constant level of illumination and other group called test group worked under changing levels of illumination. The post-test productivity results compared found illumination affected productivity only marginally. In the second test, that is the relay assembly test room, the objects of the study was broadened. This time, along with the illumination, other factors were also considered, like the length of the working day, the rest pauses, their frequency and durations and other physical conditions. So, it was found that the production had no relation with the working condition. The workers were neither closely supervised nor motivated by extra rewards. So, something else was responsible for their improvement. In interviewing program, informal group progresses was acquired in relay assembly phase, and in this phase they wanted to know the basic factor responsible for human behavior at work. So, they interviewed more than 20,000 workers, like direct questions were asked relating to the type of the supervision, working condition, living conditions, so on. Later the technique was changed to non-directive types of interviewing, where the workers were free to talk on their favorite topics related to their work environment. The study brought to light the all pervasive nature of informal groups, which had their own culture and production norms, which their members were forced to obey. Another experiment was the bank wiring experiment. It involved an in-depth observation of around 14 men making wiring assembles to determine the effect of informal group norms and formal economics incentives on productivity. The group evolved their own production norms, which were much lower than those set by the management, and the workers who produced more than the group norms were called the rate busters. The group which produced too little, they were called the cheese sellers, and those who complained against the co-workers were called the squirrels. So let's come to the result of the experiments. It says informal groups are more important complements to the formal groups. Next, social groups are more important than financial incentives to motivate the workers. Next, worker is a social man rather than a rational man motivated by financial incentives. Next, work is considered as a group activity and not as a operations performed by individuals. And the last one is social and psychological factors influence employee behavior and productivity more than the physical work conditions. Let's come to the evolution of the theory. It says it focuses more on organizational efficiency through satisfaction of social and psychological needs of the workers. Second point says participative management is better than the authoritarian management, and the design of the theory is the social need are secondary to physiological needs, and the analysis of the theory says the group dynamics may not be as important as emphasized upon. Interpretation of the theory says there is a cordial relations are overemphasized, that is conflict of opinion also generate new ideas, and the human relation physiology says that is a informal relations are as important as formal motivation, communication and leadership styles. Let's come to the second one, that is the behavioral science theory. Well, this theory, it focused on the actual behavior of individuals and group in the real organization. The finding of these people have enormously helped us in understanding organizational behavior. Actually, it recognizes the practical and situational constraints on human rationality for making optimum decisions. It attracts greater weightage to participative and group decision making, as business problems are complex and it is not feasible to make individuals responsible for solving them. And it also encouraged the process of self decisions and control instead of imposed control. And they also studied issues such as to why individuals join groups, or where there is group size or structure and process, and what is the group cohesiveness and so on. So let's come to the behavioral science approach. It says it applies scientific vision to human relation theory, and the concepts from psychology, sociology and anthropology are applied to study of human behavior. Psychology is the study of individual behavior, sociology is the study of human behavior in groups, and anthropology is the study of human behavior as individuals also and members of the group also. So the concept from various disciplines are tested before applying them in the business organization. Several sociologists and psychologists have studied, like Abraham Maslow's, Herzberg, Gregor, Douglas, and they also have come with the significant contribution to the development of this theory. And this approach is an extension and improvement of human relation movement, as this approach suggested that individuals differ in their attitude, perceptions, their needs and goals also differ from organizations' need and goals. So the need is to be achieved is to achieve fusion between the organization's goal and individual's need. Let's come to the difference of human relation theory and the behavioral science theory, which says human relations focuses on individual behavior, whereas behavioral, it focuses on group and group behavior. Human relations emphasizes on interpersonal relationship, whereas behavioral approach emphasizes on group relationships. Human relation views worker as a social man, whereas behavioral views workers as a self-actualizing man. So human relation says always views group conflict as a negative force, whereas behavioral approach views group conflict as a source of new ideas and innovations coming up. Human relations says views organization as a social system, whereas behavioral approach says as a social technical system. In human relation, emphasis is on motivation, morale and job satisfaction, whereas in behavioral approach, the emphasis is on group dynamics, informal organization structure, etc. And the last one is in human relations, it has a narrow scope and it is based on Hawthorne's experiments, whereas behavioral approach has a wider scope and it is based on a human relation movements. This is all in module 4. Thank you so much.